Retro Flora podcast. I'm Brenda.
And I'm Charmy, and we're just two crazy sisters with an opinion and a channel.
If you like true crime, conspiracies, and supernatural crap, then this is your channel. Before we even go on, I want to say Happy Black History Month!
Yay!
Because we didn't say it in the last video, and I think it's because we recorded it in January, but Happy Black History Month!
And released it in February.
Yeah, we released it in February. So, even though we have the shortest month, you guys, it's cool because we got an extra day this year. It's a leap year. Today, unfortunately, we will be discussing the case of Emmett Till. And I've heard this case. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard this case, but probably not into like full details and like what the crime. We know what the crime was. Emmett Till was murdered, but like what led up to it and everything and all the details behind it. So this is a very frustrating and infuriating case. It's a very sensitive topic, but we're gonna go ahead and dive into this because it's very important, and this is pretty much what like kicked the civil rights movement.
I just know I'm gonna be really mad during this video.
I'm gonna say trigger warning to details that are pretty graphic. If you don't want to hear it, you can always skip a couple of seconds. So let's begin. Emmett Till was born July 25th, 1941 in Chicago, Illinois. Sorry, don't say that S because they come for me. To parents Mamie Till and Louis Till. Emmett was the only child of Mamie and Louis. He never knew his father. Louis Till was a violent man who would often hit Mamie. Mamie took out a court order on him, but Louis would violate that order and get arrested. The court gave him the option of jail or the army, and in 1943, Louis enlisted in the army. He would soon be executed in 1945 for his crimes. And his crimes were he raped 2 women, and then he raped another woman and murdered her. And so he was executed. I can't remember if it was by hanging or by like the firing squad, but I think it was by hanging, and it was in Italy this happened.
That man was horrible.
No, he was a very terrible person. And one thing this is not funny, but this is just something that struck me as crazy. The court gave him the option of going to the army or going to jail. And this is because I'm assuming this is during World War II, so we probably need soldiers to go fight. And I'm thinking that a lot of crimes, they were probably like, go to jail or go to war, which is kind of scary because you don't know who you're sending over there to war. And in foreign countries, as we see what Louis did, obviously he needed to be locked up forever. Emmett grew up in a middle-class black neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. It was a haven for black businesses. Emmett was described as a happy, responsible, funny, and high-spirited child. He loved to tell jokes. At the age of 5, Emmett was stricken with polio. He made a full recovery but was left with a slight stutter. Emmett was raised with his grandparents. He attended the all-black McCosh Elementary School. Emmett spent a lot of his free times with his cousins and friends. His nickname was Bobo, and he loved baseball. In 1955, Emmett was 14 years old. He was a stocky 5'4", weighing about 150 pounds. People often thought he was older than what he looked. In August of that year, Emmett's great uncle Moses came up from Mississippi to visit the family in Chicago. He told Emmett that on his way back, he was taking his cousin Wheeler Parker back with them to visit Mississippi. Emmett begged his mother to go. At first, his mother was opposed to the idea because she wanted to take a road trip to Omaha, Nebraska. But Emmett desperately wanted to go with his uncles, so she relented and let him go, which I'm pretty sure right now, I mean not right now, but like at the time, she probably regretted it, yeah. Mamie was worried about Emmett going down south. She knew what kind of racism black folks faced down there. So we're talking about racism in the 40s. We're talking about this is the sharecropping era where, like, if you don't know what sharecropping was, it was basically mostly white farmers down in the south having plantations or fields or whatever you want to call them, and hiring the local black people that lived around there to pick their cotton or whatever they growing on their field, and they paid them very minimum wages, like pretty cheap wages. Sometimes, if you ever read that book Roll of Thunder Hear My Cry, it's kind of similar to that. I mean, they own their own farm, but you know, in the book, some of his friends their parents were sharecroppers, like picking up cotton or whatever on other people's plantations, fields, whatever you want to call them. So it was a lot of racism back there, and down there, like, respect was given to white people, no question about it. Some of the things that you had to do was always refer to them as sir or ma'am, made no eye contact with them sometimes, and when you were paying for stuff, you placed the money directly in their hand. Like, putting on the counter or the table would be considered disrespectful and could get you killed.
I also believe that they also had black people as their tenants on their land to work it, but they charged them for like the tools they use and the feed they had, and they basically put them in so much debt that no matter how much they worked, they could never pay off their debt.
That was pretty much it.
So they were basically slaves, but in another way.
Yeah,
legally.
It was like, it's like when you're in debt to the credit card people. It's like
you
put in down payments, but they're just not. They're not doing, the fees are just eating them away. So it's like you're like in this continuous cycle of debt, and that's how they trapped them there for pretty much ever, until like their kids had to be sharecroppers, and it was just, it was a lot.
It was bad.
It was like legal slavery, kind of like the prisons. On August 19th, 1955, the day before Emmett left, Mamie gave him her late father's ring engraved with the initials LT. The next day, she took Emmett to the train station. That was the last time she saw him alive. Emmett arrived to Money, Mississippi on August 21st. He stayed with his great uncle, who was a sharecropper. Money, Mississippi was a small town with only a few hundred residents. It had 3 stores, a school, a post office, and a cotton gin. The first couple of days in Money went with no harm. Emmett was having a great time with his cousin and some of the local boys. On August 24th, 1955, Emmett, his cousin Curtis, and their new friends went to the local grocery store called Bryant's Grocery and Meat Market to buy some candy and refreshments after a long day of picking cotton. The shop was owned by 24-year-old Roy Bryant and his 21-year-old wife, Carolyn. Carolyn was alone in the store that day. What happened inside the store that day is unknown. Accounts of what happened that day vary. Some witnesses stated that one of the boys dared Emmett to talk to the store cashier. It was reported that Emmett whistled at Carolyn and touched her hand or flirted with her. However, in a 2009 book written by Emmett's cousin, he stated no one dared Emmett to flirt with her. And I saw in some reports that supposedly Emmett was going around being like, I have a white girlfriend, or I've kissed and dated white women. Like, there's no evidence of any of that. That's just,
I don't think he was very boastful.
I don't think so either. I feel like his mom and his uncle would have definitely let him know like what the deal was down south. But whatever happened that day, Emmett never mentioned it to his uncle. 4 days later, at 2:30 a.m. on August 28th, Roy Bryant, the shop owner, and J.W. Millam, Roy's half-brother, forced their way into Emmett's uncle's home and kidnapped Emmett at gunpoint. Uncle Moses tried to tell them that Emmett was from up north and didn't know any better, but Roy told Moses that he wouldn't live to see his next birthday if he told anyone what they were doing. Bro, he threatened this old man.
I mean, they're in the South, so
I know. They marched Emmett to their truck and asked someone in the car if this was the boy, to which a soft voice replied yes. So the men tied him up, threw him into the back of the truck before driving towards Money, Mississippi. Moses reported the kidnapping. Although I saw in one article it said that Moses was too scared to call the police, like out of fear of being killed. So that Curtis, one of Emmett's cousins, did. And also he called Emmett's mom. Roy and J.W. were questioned by the LaFleur County Sheriff George Smith, which is such a typical, like,
white Southern name.
The two admitted to taking Emmett from his uncle's house, but claimed they released him in front of Roy's store that same night. Both men were arrested for the kidnapping. On August 31st, 1955, 3 days after Emmett's kidnapping, his body was found by 2 boys fishing in the Tallahatchie River. His face was unrecognizable and his body was brutally mutilated. Trigger warning. He had been shot above his right ear. His eye was dislodged from the socket. He had bruising on his back and hips. His body had been weighed down by a fan blade, which was tied around his neck with barbed wire. He was found nude, wearing only his silver ring with the initials LT and May 25th, 1943 on it, which was used to identify his body. Although Mississippi officials wanted to do a hasty burial, Mamie demanded that her son's body be returned to Chicago, and when the casket arrived on September 2nd, she insisted that it be opened. She was horrified by her son's disfigured body. And I read, like, in different articles about people, like, in that neighborhood hearing screaming and hollering from them, like, brutally beating Emmett.
It just makes me so mad.
I know, because I'm just sitting here, like, and I don't want to go back over the gory details, but, like, what they did to his body is just insane. And he's 14, you guys, a 14-year-old. And I'm pretty sure when they came in and took him, that his uncle was like reiterating that he is a 14-year-old child. Like, come on. She decided to have an open casket funeral, stating, "There was just no way I could describe what was in that box. No way. And I just wanted the world to see," end quote. Tens of thousands of people lined the streets outside the funeral home to view Emmett's body. His body was on display for 5 days. Thousands of people attended Emmett's funeral at the Roberts Temple Church of God in Christ. Photos of Emmett's body circulated around the country. They appeared in Jet Magazine, The Chicago Defender, and many more media outlets. The trial began September 19th, 1955, and lasted 5 days. Black people and women were barred from serving on the jury, so Roy and...
Of course they were.
Yeah, I know. So Roy and JW were tried before an all-white male jury. The defense tried to cast doubt on the identity of the body, claiming it was not positively identified, and even questioned if Emmett was dead. The defense also stated that Roy and JW admitted to the kidnap of Emmett, but released him that same night. On September 25th, after 67 minutes of deliberation, the jury acquitted both men of all charges.
Of course they did.
Yeah, they did. And here's another thing that I was reading, and I was just like, what in the world? It said that the jury, they were drinking beer during the trial, like waving their guns around, like just a whole bunch of like belligerent crap. And they were acquitted of all charges, even though they admitted to kidnapping Emmett.
It just makes me so mad. Like,
but of course they had an all-white male juror, I should put that, because I feel like if they had white females on there, there probably would have been sympathy because this was a kid. But yeah, I could stand corrected. This is the South, so I don't know. In January 1956, Roy and JW admitted to killing Emmett. They told their story on how they kidnapped and murdered Emmett to Look magazine for $4,000, and back then that was $46,000. And this is a direct quote from JW when asked why he killed Emmett. Quote, "What else could I do? He thought he was as good as any white man," end quote. Sir, he's not a man. First of all, sir, he's not a man. He's not even sir, you. Boy, he's not a man. He's a 14-year-old boy. And I'm trying to figure out why.
Honestly, I feel like none of that stuff they said he did happen, and they just didn't like him because he was happy. He was just a happy black kid, and like, no, blacks aren't supposed to be happy.
Right. Yeah. And he's from up north, so they're probably just like entitled up north.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Yeah, but this is 1940s, and whistling at a white woman is punishable by death, illegally, of course. But then you get to get away with it, so, Both men could not be charged again because of the double jeopardy law, so they got away with Emmett's murder, and low-key kind of got paid for it, if you ask me, because they just made $46,000. I know back then it's $4,000, but...
It's a lot.
Yeah, they just made a lot of money. After both men admitted to the killing, their support in Mississippi declined. Many of their friends and supporters cut them off.
So they believe that they didn't do it? They honestly believe that?
I don't know. I mean, I just feel like
they admitted it, so now we don't, like, man,
I just feel like they knew. Maybe some of their, like, naive friends were probably like, nah, they wouldn't have done that, but I feel like they knew. For the most part, their friends knew. If their supporters didn't know, that's one thing, because they may not be close to them, but yeah, their friends knew. So black people began to boycott their shops, causing them to go bankrupt and close their shops. The bank refused to grant them loans, but after struggling to find a loan and finding someone to rent to, JW finally got a $4,000 loan and 217 acres of land to sharecrop on. Sir, what happened to the $4,000 you already had?
He had to split it with his friend.
No, I think that they each got paid that.
Oh, dang. Really?
It didn't say anything about them splitting it. Maybe they did have to split it, but even then, that's $23,000? I mean, $2,000 in their time, but $23,000. That's what it's equivalent of. The blacks refused to work the acres of land for him. He was forced to pay whites at a higher wages, which I assume didn't work out for him because both men ended up moving to Texas. So, but they were not welcome there once people found out who they were. So they eventually had to return to Mississippi several years later. So basically they are social pariahs. Like, people find out who they are and they're just like, yeah, we don't want you anywhere near us.
Honestly, that's like, I feel so happy that we were able to come together and boycott.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time, like, this shop, I forgot where, but it was a white owned shop, and they were mean to their black customers, and the black people just stopped coming to them, and they're like losing money, like, oh, come, oh yeah, now you want us to come.
Right.
Oh yeah. Because he ain't getting our money.
It just shows.
You may be black, but money's green and you want it.
It just shows, like, when people are united, what change could happen. I actually listened to a case where this young man was being attacked because of wrong identity from a gang, and they went in the store and, like, basically dragged him out, was beating him and stuff like that. And the shop owner didn't do anything. He didn't call the police. He didn't do anything. And when people found out that he didn't do anything, like, they boycotted his shop. Like, he started losing a lot of money. And it's like, I'm not asking you to put your life in danger, but what you
call
can
911.
Right, it's call the police.
Just not sit there and like
la-di-da-di, I didn't see nothing. Like, come on now. We all have, like, a part we can play. J.W. worked as an equipment operator till his health forced him to retire early. He was later tried for assault and battery, writing bad checks, and using stolen credit cards. He died of spinal cancer on December 30th, 1980 at the age of 61. Roy worked in Texas as a welder until his blindness caused him to quit. He divorced Carolyn and remarried in 1980. He opened up a store in Mississippi, and in 1984 and 1988, he was convicted of food stamp fraud. He died of cancer on September 1st, 1994 at the age of 63. So basically their lives kind of went downhill after that.
They still got to live to their 60s.
I agree.
Something Emmett never did.
I agree that what's the great thing of living this long and you have a miserable life. So it's kind of like they had to live with that every day and they got treated for it. As much as I wish they were in jail, it looks like karma did her thing and whooped their asses. So I'm glad about that. Carolyn was never arrested after admitting that Emmett never did those things he was accused of. Despite the FBI having an arrest warrant drafted, she was never arrested. She remarried, becoming Carolyn Donham, and moved several times, disappearing from the public eye. But 60 Minutes found her in 2004 living in Greenville, Mississippi. They tried to interview her, but she never responded. In 2022, a grand jury declined to indict her, and on April 25th, 2023, she died at the age of 88.
She should have went to jail.
I know, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not saying, like, arrest elderly people, but, like...
If they did something bad...
Something needed to happen, whether, like, she was arrested, whether when she died, half her inheritance went to Emmett's family or the NAACP, something. Like, there should have been consequences for what happened to her. I mean, what she did. Like, she lied. Got a 14-year-old killed. Did she kill him? Nope. Did she play a part in his death?
Yes. Did she lie for her man? Yes.
Yeah. Ugh. I'm so mad. I don't know what her life was like because obviously she was hidden from the public, but I just hope karma was whooping her. Mamie Till got married to Gene Mobley and continued to educate people about Emmett's murder. Mamie graduated from Chicago Teacher College in 1960 and became a teacher. She died of heart failure January 8th, 2003 at 81. So she still kept her on, like, pushing and, like, you know, getting support and just telling Emmett's story so that it wouldn't die, because it shouldn't die. Like, what happened to him was just unconscionable. Horrible. Like, it was horrible. And people were just like, la-di-da. Well, I'm not gonna say people were la-di-da-di. Like, there was a movement that happened, but it was just like, that was the norm in the South. So, like, that happening wasn't, like, super big deal to them. But it was a huge deal for the whole country to see. Emmett Till's murder sparked an upsurge of activism, which became the civil rights movement. 100 days after his murder, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat and moved to the back of the bus. She thought of Emmett Till and said she couldn't give up her seat. So, as we see, like, and there's other cases where people refuse to do stuff. Obviously, we know the civil rights movement, but Emmett Till's murder really hit home for a lot of people. Like, a lot of people were upset. A lot of people were like, y'all killed a 14-year-old boy, and I hate to say y'all, but y'all killed a 14-year-old boy and got away with it.
And I was like, these men that happen to be white,
these racist men killed a 14-year-old boy, and we were done with it. It's bad enough. I was looking at the case of George Stinley and how in a way it's similar to Emmett Till's, but it's not, because, like, unfortunately for Emmett Till, he never got a trial, and unfortunately, even though George did get a trial, it was like a ass child, and they ended up executing a 14-year-old boy, and he didn't commit these murders. And that literally happened, I believe a couple years after Emmett was born. So that was already on the minds of people. They were like, what the heck? Like, y'all, the trial, the judicial system really didn't do what it was supposed to do.
Bring justice.
Right, because justice was not served. The person who ended up killing those women was free, and you killed a 14 not women but children. I believe it was 2 girls, I believe, were killed. I'm gonna have to do my research because it's actually a TikTok I'm gonna cover this month. But the person who killed them got away, and you guys killed an innocent 14-year-old boy. But because of Emmett Till's murder, there were laws that happened. Obviously, segregation was ended after the civil rights movement. And I always encourage people to look up the civil rights movement, do your own research, see what was happening back then, see how racist this country was. Because they want to pretend like it didn't happen, or sweep it under the rug, or call it involuntary what are they trying to change the word slavery to? Involuntary working or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, it's slavery. Just call it what it is. Stop
changing the name is gonna change the history.
Right. Just be transparent about it. It's better that you be transparent about our racism so we can move forward from it. I remember in high school, and even when we were in our book club, that we went to this exhibit that was at the Natural History Museum or the Science Center.
I think it is the Science Center.
And it was called America I Am. And it was basically going through the history of Black people in this country. So it started off with slavery and then went through like the end of slavery, the sharecropping days, you know, segregation,
the
KKK, the end of segregation, you know, the civil rights movement. It was a lot, and it was very eye-opening, and I wish that exhibit was still here, but I know that happened, I hate to outdate myself, but like 2010, so
I think it'll come back. I just need
I know that they ended it because a lot of the artifacts and exhibits that they had were borrowed from other museums, so they probably returned that, but it was very educating, and I really encourage.
I remember us going, and our cousin was crying.
I was crying. Like, when you go to the slave, they have a part where they replicated a slave ship, and you see how they were stacked on top of each other and how they traveled to America, and it was so sad, and I feel like it's an important part of history that we should remember so we don't repeat our history. So that's all I have to say about this case. I'm upset with this case. I know Karma was doing her blows, but I really wanted more. I hate to say that. Well, you've made it to the end.
You must really like the sounds of our high-pitched voices and quirky commentary.
You might as well like and subscribe to our channel and hit that bell to be notified every time we drop new content. If you want to follow our social medias, they will be linked in the description box below.
Bye!
Peace! Happy Black History Month! Fight the power!